A Florida Republican was banned from a domestic violence shelter for apparently repeatedly hitting on abused women. Wow. Okay, so this story, there's a lot to it. According to the Daytona Beach News-Journal, 71-year-old State Senator Tom Wright was banned from the Beacon Center for allegedly flirting with domestic violence survivors and then getting confrontational when asked to stop by a former CEO. Wow. So now, this is former Beacon Center CEO Angie Pye, who said, quote, that she alleged to put a stop to Wright coming on the property because of his flirty or grooming type behavior, according to the News-Journal. Now, he apparently didn't take that very well. In a September 2nd, altercation, he got very angry. So, according to the News-Journal, that propensity for anger was on full display on September 2nd when Wright got into a videotaped confrontation with the shelter's interim CEO, who was not Angie Pye, someone else, and was given a trespass warning from Daytona Beach Police, barring him from the Beacon Center. I'm going to show you that video. You can see it's blocked out for people's protection, but you can see that Wright is in the red shirt. You can see him getting in that person's face. Okay. So already, wow, great behavior from an elected official. But it turns out he's got quite a bit of history with this particular shelter. Apparently back in 2017, he was accused of preying on a young mother who was fleeing Hurricane Irma. This was back in, again, 2017 with her infant. Now, he had paid for this short bus because it turns out he has worked, volunteered for this shelter for quite some time, had even at some point been on the board of directors. Wow. So Shelby Dunlap was the woman that was fleeing the hurricane. And basically Wright, according to her, had told her about prostitutes in Cuba and topless women on a boat before offering to fly her out to Las Vegas, she recalled to the Daytona Beach News-Journal. Wow. Why would you think that that's at all appropriate? In fact, here's what Dunlap said. It's kind of embarrassing to say, but whenever you're going through that, especially, I was only like 20 years old, but you feel like, okay, there's this rich guy, like, that could help me out of my problems. Now, Dunlap didn't accept the offer. In fact, she felt kind of weird about it, super uncomfortable. And then, later on, realized, quote, he was a creep. Sounds like it. Sounds like it. Now, this happened 6 years ago. He's 71. That still made him in his mid-60s hitting on a 20-year-old at a women's shelter who was fleeing a hurricane. Gross. Nasty. Oh, but it gets worse. So, getting back to the September incident, Wright had showed up trying to get on a bus filled with domestic abuse survivors and their children. So now, interim CEO Jessica Rivers tried to stop him. She was one of the ones in the video. Video showed the pair arguing, with Wright allegedly stating that he was only interested in speaking with the driver. Gee, I wonder why. Oh yeah, why don't you just drive him over to my house? He then physically put his hands on Rivers, who shouted, "Do not put your hands on me." Wright initially stepped back before lunging towards her and appeared to yell in her face as she backed away. Again, all of that was in the video. So now here's the thing. Already, there's so many red flags here, so many bad things. And then you consider the location. You're in front of a bus, or right next to a bus, filled with women who have dealt with domestic violence. This is super triggering. This guy's acting like a crazy person, yelling and carrying on, at a domestic violence shelter. What? Wow. Now, a third employee then stepped in to try to break up the argument, though Wright can be seen continuing to argue and point fingers. Again, you saw that in the video. Rivers then said, quote, this is her talking to the Sentinel, "He came at me, wasn't a friendly touch, but the touch of a parent or authority type, striking me to get my attention." She then added that after the altercation, she was pressured to resign by the board after the incident. Several other current and former employees at the Beacon Center also recounted various times that the state senator erupted in anger and behaved inappropriately before his time in office when he served as a volunteer for the facility. So again, as I mentioned, this guy was a volunteer, and to me, it kind of feels like he was volunteering so he could have access to vulnerable women. Sounds like predatory behavior to me. One woman even claimed that Wright had ripped CDs that were being donated out of her hands when she had told him that she hadn't attended his Christmas party because her child had a basketball tournament. Oh, so let me just take these CDs. You didn't show up to my Christmas. Well, I had something about my kids. Yeah, I don't care. You can't have these. Again, super gross, super manipulative, super effed up. But there is more. Now, getting back to former CEO Angie Pye, she said that back in 2017, he had wanted to come onto the board of directors. Initially, I thought that it was a good fit. Wait, what? Why? Why would that be a good fit? In order to, get this, keep him away from the shelter residents. They all knew he was a creep. So why didn't they get rid of him? Well, he's rich and protected. That's right. So now she said that board members can't volunteer, so it was another way to ensure he wouldn't have direct contact with the shelter residents. He came to one meeting and got his feelings hurt about something, and he quit the board. Total creep. So now, all of this, again, had happened, and then Wright finally got elected into office. When he got elected into office, he then started spreading rumors about this shelter, that the directors had conflicts of interest, and that the survivors were engaging in sex work, drugs, prostitution, human trafficking. Wow. Just, I mean, gross textbook abuser behavior. And according to Rivers, who resigned soon after the altercation, the DCF and the center's board are protecting Wright. You know who else is protecting Wright? The Republican Party of Florida, who hasn't said a dang thing about it. They're silent. Rivers says, quote, "He owes me an apology. She is now without a job after spending years as an advocate for domestic violence victims. I did all the right things, and they didn't. And I got sacrificed for it." Think about this. They're protecting this guy who, yes, has money, and so he has power. I mean, he has the ability now to steer state funding to or away from this, and even has his own personal money. And they weren't sure, because at one point he was saying, I need to make a donation. I'm going to make a donation here. But they weren't sure whether it's going to come from the state or whether it was going to come from his pockets. So it's that reason, the money and the money alone, is why I believe he is being protected. Even though it is very, very clear that this guy, to me, is only, was only there so he could try to entrap young, vulnerable women into doing God knows what. I don't know. The fact that he is being protected, though, I mean, that's super, super messed up. And it just kind of shows you the fact that Republicans, his colleagues, aren't saying anything in Florida, kind of shows you party of family values.